Whenever you construct a deck, regardless of what format and even regardless of what TCG game you're actually constructing that deck for, the thought of mana curve is actually gonna be quite important. And the universal answer why it is important, regardless of what format and even TCG game you're playing, is this. You wanna be active and have a fighting capacity along the entire possible duration of the game. You want to have a few cards on a low CMC of 1, so you're able to fight in the early stage of the game. A few cards in the middle, and also a few expensive cards on CMC 5 and 6, so you have a big impact in the late game. Now this is of course going to vary a little bit depending on the deck you're actually building. A burn deck is going to have an average CMC of 1 and a few cards on 2, while an aggro deck is going to have most cards on 1 and 2 and a few cards that are going to squeeze in on CMC 3. This is of course also true for fast combo decks in cEDH. Aggro and combo simply wanna win before late game kicks in. However, all decks in cEDH aren't going for the fast combo win. Some decks are going for a more slow control and even stacks control game plan where they are prolonging the game. Because of this fact, even fast combo decks have to adapt towards a longer game situation as well, because they aren't 100% sure they're going to get their fast win on turn 3. They could get stopped and they have to fight all the way to turn 6. Therefore, all decks should have a plan or a construct ID on how they are going to be operating and playing on a later game scenario. A simple answer to this question for a fast combo deck could be to simply slot in a few cards on CMC 6 and 5 that has a huge impact that is gonna rebuild them. For example, Seasons Past. If they resolve the Seasons Past, they're gonna refill their entire hand with all their combo pieces that got them counterspelled and all sorts of protection, so they can resolve their combo with protection from their hand. And in this video I'm gonna try to argument why this is the wrong decision. I actually have a great example of this. This isn't a fast combo deck. This is my Slow Bomb Burn Bear's mana curve. This is a control deck. This deck is designed to fight long games. I want you to take a look at the ratio of cards on CMC 5. I have 2. That's Ad Nauseam and Force of Will, so actually I'm gonna count it 1 because I'm not paying mana for the Force of Will. Sometimes actually we can play Submerge, and Submerge is a 5 mana cost that I don't pay mana for either. On the CMC of 4 I have 2 cards, that's Notion Thief and another little bit strange card that goes in and out of the deck, it's Cryptcast. So it's 2 cards on CMC 4, that's not huge. The rest are simply on CMC 3, 2 and 1, and I also have a few cards on CMC 0. 3 cards are great. But how is this deck going to fight the long game? I mean, we gotta have some really expensive cards that are smashing into play on a really high CMC, so you have this huge impact, like cards that are win cons, like Avenger of Zendikar. Now that's a casual card. The answer is very simple. I have a game plan in my deck construction. It actually goes by the name of Thrasios and a lot of card draw. But I really think that Scavenging Ooze is a great example here and deserves a showcase. I think that card is a great card design. It's a 2 mana cost 2/2, so it comes into play at the early stage of the game, and it has an interaction against the graveyards. It's making sure we don't lose the game to various graveyard strategies. And it also grows. If nothing else is happening and it becomes this late game, then you can use Scavenging Ooze to grow it and then start smashing face and eventually win that way if it comes to that. So if we go back to this picture and look at the mana curve, instead of slotting in a card on CMC 6, we could slot in a card on CMC 2 that goes by the name of Scavenging Ooze. There are other variations to Scavenging Ooze. This is just an example. And these cards are going to be good in the early stage of the game. On like turn 3, you put this into play on turn 2, and you maybe have mana open to activate it once, but then as the game goes on, you're going to have more mana, and with more mana, you're going to grow your capacity, and your capacity and Scavenging Ooze is going to grow alongside with you. So, in the longer stage of the game, the longer the game goes, the bigger and faster this thing will grow. It's a snowball thing. But I also said that card draw would be part of my long-term game plan situation. Take a look at Sylvan Library. It's a 2 mana cost enchantment that is helping me to draw a card. This could easily enter at turn 2. I've actually seen this enter turn 1 in various games because of fast mana acceleration. And with Sylvan Library, you could draw more cards that's gonna help you snowball, so you draw into Abrupt Decay and even Mind Sensor. You could easily view this like a 5 mana cost, white, black, green and 2 generic for a 2/1 flying creature with Prevent Search and ETB, destroy target permanent on CMC 3 or less. So card draw is basically combining 2 cards on low CMC into 1 card on big CMC. You could view it like that. So instead of slotting in a lot of cards on a high CMC, I would rather say slotting cards that are drawing cards for you, drawing your 2 CMCs and your 3 CMCs from your deck that is gonna help you overpower your opponents in the late game. But I wanna go back to this graph and picture again. You see, cEDH is a combo format. Combo is the metagame, and people are going to try and attempt winning at turn 2, 3, 4, or somewhere around that really fast. So having cards inside the deck on a CMC 5 and 6 is actually rather risky. You rather have most of the cards on a really low CMC curve, so you're able to interact and fight against these fast combo decks early in the game. But cards that are gonna be good in the later game are also gonna help you fight in that long game situation. So hitting cards like Sylvan Library and Scavenging Ooze, that are in my opinion great examples, are helping you in both the early game and the late game. I think this picture is a perfect illustration of what I'm actually talking about. Snowballing. What does that actually mean? If you've never heard it before, it basically means something begins a little bit tiny and then it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like how a snowball is rolling down a mountain, growing and becoming bigger the longer it keeps on going. And Thrasius the Snowball Master is a perfect example here. There are others as well. Commanders on a really low CMC that draw cards, for example Tumna, Ceesay the Weatherlight Captain, Tassigul the Golden Fang, etc, that comes into play early in the game and then start drawing cards, drawing more ramp, drawing more interaction, drawing more combo pieces, drawing more value, and then you are growing towards a long and stable late game. But they also enter at the early stage of the game, so you can begin immediately. However, there are actually a few examples of competitive EDH decks that could include a few really expensive cards. Those are usually always stacks decks. Here we are looking at my Tavasa cEDH Stacks Enchantment deck, and this deck contains a few cards that are really expensive. For example, Open the Vaults. When you resolve Open the Vaults, you basically put all the enchantment from your entire graveyard into play, all artifacts as well. There's another card that goes by the name of Replenish. This is on 4 mana, and this is a more expensive version. I basically view it that Replenish is so good that I'm willing to have a more expensive version of Replenish in the deck that goes by the name of Open the Vaults. So there are situations where some really expensive cards actually gets into the deck anyways. Elesh Norn is a great example of this as well. 7 mana for a 4/7 vigilance that will give all your creatures +2/+2 and all your opponent's creatures -2/-2. So this is in fact a huge expensive hate bear and is having a amazing effect in the late game, and this is actually really good versus a lot of different decks, and depending on the metagame, this is a great choice of inclusion depending on what form of deck you're playing. If you're playing a stacks hate bear creature deck, this is something you could consider. Here is another great example of a Rakdos 6 mana hate bear, Sire of Insanity. This is often viewed and overlooked as a casual card, but if you've played against this, you know it has a really impactful effect. At the beginning of each player's end step, each player discards their hand. This means it's gonna happen the same turn this comes into play if it survives towards the end step. So there are actually options that you could include inside your cEDH deck that are on a CMC of 5, 6 and even greater. However, I would really like to emphasize the snowball effect and the concept of rather looking at cards on a low CMC that could also be good in a late game where the deck's complete game plan constructs a strategy and a deck flow that is going to be able to fight in a long game situation anyways. You shouldn't include expensive cards because they have a really huge and impact effect and have really big CMC cost. You should include them because they are great versus the metagame and they are perfect within your deck's strategy. So should I late game or should I late game? That is the question. When you're making the choice between Scavenging Ooze and all the Scavenging Ooze other examples on a low CMC interactive creatures that are growing towards a late game compared to the expensive cards like Elish Norn and all her other stompy variants, the answer would simply be which one is going to perform the better deck. Usually, I think Scavenging Ooze and all those variants are gonna be the correct answer. All the Snowball, Ramp, card draw, interactive win cons like Scavenging Ooze, etc. are, in my opinion, gonna do the perfect job. But there are in few exceptional cases where Elish Norn could actually sneak in. Combo is definitely the metagame of this format, but I would also like to mention that snowballing is also something of the metagame in this format. Fast mana, early ramp, into more card draw, into more value, into more interaction, into more card draw, into more ramp. Keep on going until you become an unstoppable force that is combo off, and winning is something you wanna do. And Scavenging Ooze aren't hurting this strategy, while Elish Norn could. We have talked a lot about the different things in this video, a lot of things I guess you weren't expecting to hear. I mean, we've talked about mana curve, but we've gone a little bit outside the concept as well. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and I will try, I'm a human being after all, I will try and answer that question. Take care. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link down below will also help this channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.